Good evening, everyone. The time is now 7:03. I'd like to call the East Lyme Board of Finance meeting to order. It is Wednesday, August 12th. With that, I see a number of people in the waiting room. So I will call for public delegations. I would like to mention up front that we will not be making a decision on the latest recommendation from the Board of Selectmen for the Public Safety Building tonight. So if you would like to comment on that, you are welcome to. Or if you would like to hold your comments until our next Board of Finance meeting when we have a new recommendation before us, you may also do that. I did receive one email today addressed to myself from Mike Schultz, Lover's Lane. He asked me for this to be read into the record and to share it with the Board of Finance members. Okay, so bear with me a second. I got a text from Rich Steele saying he's waiting to be let in. So let me go grab him. Does anybody see Rich Steele in the waiting room? I see somebody named Owner in the waiting room. I'm going to unmute them and ask who that is.
That was Richard, Camille.
It is Rich?
Yes.
Okay, is he in now?
He is.
Okay. So Rich Steele has joined us. The time is 7:05. Hi, Rich. We're just getting to public delegations now. I have a short message to read into the record from Mike Schultz of Lover's Lane. Camille, I'm requesting my comments be read into record. I feel our elected officials on the BOF have spoken clearly on the issue of additional appropriation for the retrofit of the public safety building, identifying the lack of transparency and lack of apparent needs of the project. The public deserves full disclosure of all current costs, retrofit costs, and anticipated future costs over the next 5 years to 10 years. Then and only then should a referendum be considered. There is no question that the police need new accommodations, and that should already have occurred. Maybe we should move the town hall to the Honeywell building and the police into the then vacated town hall building. Plenty of space, parking, and central to town. So I have forwarded that email to Karen Simitric for the public record. Now I will call on anybody in the waiting room. I'm going to admit all because this is a meeting. And if there is anybody in the waiting room that would like to speak at this time, can you please unmute yourself and let me know? Yes, Anna.
So right before the meeting, when I went and obtained my phone, I have someone sent me an email, and it's addressed to the Board of Finance.
Okay.
It is on the public safety building, so that's why I'm bringing it to your attention.
Okay. Would you like to read that?
Hi, Board of Finance. I vote no for additional money for the public safety building. The selected location is not good, way at the edge of town. The cost is outrageous. We are not a huge crime city that needs over-the-top high-tech equipment. The way it is now, you won't have enough to put holding cells. We will have to pay Waterford again. Police should have a modern, adequate station. We go over the top. Look at what other towns have. We do not have a large police force. Let's plan something sensible. Resident East Lyme, Mary Melton. That's the end.
Mary Melton. Did she give an address? Anna?
She did not.
Okay. And have you forwarded that email on to Karen Smitrick for the record? Okay, if not, I'm sure you will. Okay, is there anybody in the waiting room that would like to address the Board of Finance this evening? All participants are now unmuted. Is there anybody that would like to address the Board of Finance this evening? Okay, I don't hear anybody wishing to address the board. So let me go and remove them back to waiting room. There's a number of people here, so give me a few moments, please.
Well, that's the trade-off. Pick up, get ice cream.
I'm having trouble with the waiting room. Let's just see how this goes. All right. Let's close delegations and move on to the next portion of our meeting this evening. It's the minutes.
You're actively playing with those ones. Put the ones on the couch away.
Bear with me. Let me see if I'm going to mute everyone. Okay, so if each Board of Finance member could please unmute themselves at this time. Because we will be coming up on a vote. Okay, great. So the first regular meeting minutes under agenda item 3 are from July 8th, 2020. Did anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding those minutes? These would be from July 8th, 2020. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Okay, I have a few corrections, Karen. If you could bear with me, this would be on page 4. The 4th paragraph down where it begins, Ms. Chicello asked Ms. Johnson. So that was actually me. So if you could change that to Ms. Alberti asked Ms. Johnson what the total amount of dollars they had been putting into the CIP plan over the past couple of years for this. Ms. Johnson said that it is currently, and here's the next correction, Karen, the number should be $329,701. So I would like this to read, Ms. Johnson said that it is currently $329,701, and that with a $55,000 transfer from the operating fund, the balance would be $394,201. So just a little correction on those figures there. The next line again is Ms. Alberti asked what happens to the excess funds. And in the next paragraph, also Ms. Alberti said that they would have about $122,000 left. And those were the only corrections that I had to the meeting minutes. Nobody else has any questions, comments, or concerns. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll move to approve the East Lyme Board of Finance regular meeting minutes as amended Wednesday, July 8th, 2020.
Thank you, Ann Santoro. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, John Birmingham. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, approved 600. Thank you. Next up on the agenda are the meeting minutes from the special meeting of July 20th, 2020. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns? So I actually, yes, Ann Santoro?
I just had one, and it had to do with an attachment. I think it can be easily resolved without a big redo. But we have an attachment, I think it was attachment 11, which is the slide presentations provided by Silva Petroselli, et cetera. And I just think on that first page of that attachment, and I spoke to Karen Zmitrik about this, there are notations that she had written on some of the various slides, and in handwritten form. And I just think it might be nice to write, you know, to identify her as the person whose handwriting it is. Because when I had asked Silva Petroselli to send her that slide presentation, it had no writing, obviously, and then we have writing on it. So, so maybe something as simple as notations provided by Karen Z, BOF recording secretary. You know, at that, so when someone's looking at that, they'll know that those aren't the notations of the architect or somebody else, the handwritten notations, without having to redo or put them into a set of minutes or anything like that. I think that's an easy solution to that. Because usually with the attachments, we identify, you know, what it is, date, and so forth. But here, I think Karen was sort of doing a little bit of the minutes in, you know, into that presentation. So that may just clarify whose handwriting it is.
Right. So I think there's a couple of issues here. One is the timeliness of the receipt of the presentation. Maybe we could improve the process in getting the presentation to Karen in a timely manner. And also, Karen Zmitrik, our recording secretary, has been doing this for a number of years, always making writing hand notes on those presentations. But I do agree with you, Ann Santoro, that it should be noted somehow that those notations are from the recording secretary and not the person that submitted the presentation.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I do think that makes sense. And so I'm sure that we'll be able to clear that up in the future.
I didn't get that presentation from any of you people. That presentation that was handed to me came from Anna Johnson after the fact, after the meeting. I didn't have a new presentation, neither did any of you for that meeting. I had the old presentation that I had mailed to you 12 days before that came from Sandy Anderson from their meeting, because we never had a new one.
Right. I mean,
That's an after the fact thing.
Yeah,
No,
that's absolutely true, Karen.
Yeah, and Karen, when you asked for me to forward, I forwarded it to you immediately from Silva Petroselli. It was done a couple hours later from that.
I used the one I got from Anna Johnson, though, because she had forwarded.
Yeah, same difference. But yeah, just a notation that it's your handwriting, because it's hard for the reader to necessarily know that. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I would actually like to table motioning to approve these minutes, because I did get through them and I had some questions about the way some of it was written, and I would like to have the time to go back and review the tape just to make sure that it's absolutely correct, because I know a lot of times people rely on the written record and not watch the video. So I would just like to have a little more time to make sure that this is absolutely correct. Is that okay with the rest of the board members?
Minutes aren't a transcript, Camille. Just remember that. Minutes aren't a transcript. They're not meant to be.
Yes, I know.
That would have taken umpteen hours and hours and hours.
Karen, you did a phenomenal job. You did a phenomenal job condensing all of this information from a 7-hour meeting down to this. But sometimes mistakes can be made, as I pointed out in the July 8th meeting minutes. And so I just as chair, would like to be absolutely sure. I'm not intending to change the style of your writing or the content of what you captured. I just need to make sure some of the data is exactly as it was presented that evening, because this was such a critical meeting, and I just want to be absolutely sure. And I apologize. I just didn't have time to go back and review the tape to verify some of the questions that I had. So again, Karen, phenomenal job on this. It's really amazing. But if you could just please humor me and give me a couple of, another meeting to go through it, that would be helpful. So how does the board feel? Is that okay if we table the minutes?
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Sure.
Okay, great. All right. So with that, let's move on to reports this evening. This is agenda item 4. First up would be Board of Education. We received notice today that understandably so, the Board of Education is a little tied up and trying to get ready with the new school year. They won't be providing us an update this evening. So let's, with that, move on to the first selectman. And if Mr. Nickerson could give us a brief overview of what's going on in town, that would be helpful.
Well, probably most what's on everyone's mind is what the change of plans for tonight's meeting. As you read in the paper, as you heard, good timing. Some people call it good timing. I think it would have been better timing to have this happen about a year ago. But $1.7 million FEMA reimbursement came to the town in the award of 2 different checks, one for Irene, one for Sandy, 8 and 9 years ago. Unbelievable. Put in some paperwork way back when. That was now Senator Formica and our engineering crew did a phenomenal job of documenting so much of the work, so much of the destruction, so much of the depreciation that we took on some of our facilities, and the man-hours, especially the man-hours that went into those 2 storms. We absorbed some of those costs. We cut back then, and we pinched here and pinched there, and we got through because it took 9 years to get those claims checks. So here's the checks. It's been suggested that rather than taking on new debt to finish this police building, that this be applied to this. We're gonna. I'm bringing this to the Board of Selectmen next week in a special meeting. I would ask that you, if at all possible, if the 6 of you can get together, to swiftly have a meeting after that. It'd be nice to get this behind us. I know Camille's had several questions that have come up. We think we've answered them, but we have them ready to be answered again. I saw a list of them today. Some of them were new to me for the first time. Nothing's been sent to me directly, but through Paul Daigle, the chair of the Vision Committee. Bottom line is we want to finish that building correctly. We won't have enough money. 1.7 won't cover the 7.2 to finish the entire project. We might suggest putting a particular element on hold, doing that later. Or in a future conversation, maybe we go and bond the $500,000 and do it right, do it efficient, do it cheaper now than doing it later. More discussion on that will occur, but this $1.73 million we're proposing to add it to the $2 million we already have, and it's already been proposed and appropriated. By the way, that is, I saw Michael Goss on the line. He said there was no plan B. There is a plan B. We have $2 million that's been appropriated, voted on by the townspeople for renovation of that building, and we would put $2 million into it. Nobody would be happy with that. It wouldn't be a finished product. And the police, while they'll be moving into healthier space, cleaner space, they'll be underutilizing that building, and still we wouldn't be, we'd be chasing this. for the next 10 years, we'll be chasing appropriations and proposals to finish the building up. So I asked the chair to remove this from your agenda. We didn't, I guess, apply an amended agenda, but we're asking it to be pulled. We do not want you to vote on the resolution this evening. That might be Paul Daigle on the line. I don't think we're prepared tonight to answer all the questions, unless you need to hear them tonight. I have a few of them, the answers here, but I think we'll do that in time at the next meeting and hopefully start with that.
Okay.
Answer your questions and then move to the $1.7 million appropriation. I'll add that, this would be a regular appropriation like we do for, say, a fire truck, right? So Board of Selectmen will appropriate, the money will come to you, and then we'll go to a town meeting. And we'd have a virtual town meeting or an in-person town meeting to be decided if we could pull that off. I'll also tell you that everybody involved in a referendum was very negative about having a referendum. The town clerk, the town moderators, the town registrars. We had this primary the other day, but most people use the mail, and I think most people are going to use the mail for the presidential and the congressional elections coming up in November. It's a very difficult thing. So we were struggling on how we're going to pull it off, and I think this would be the more fair. This is a good alternative. Let's put it that way. I'll let you ask questions, but I'll just also point out that the Veterans Park, if you know where Tracus's gas station is or was, it's been sold, of course, but the entrance to Oswegatchie Hills Road and Veterans Park has always been an awful intersection, and we've done a lot of work over there to regrade and rebuild that intersection to a safer intersection with better sight lines. And when that park and the ball fields get used, patrons will be able to exit and enter there in a safer fashion. Lastly, I know Jeff isn't on the call. The Board of Ed is not on the call tonight. I'll speak for Jeff and myself. We met with the governor along with a handful of other people. He came to New London, and about 8 of us around a table, and we talked about opening schools. And we talked about, the pluses and minuses, what happened when we opened the town hall versus opening schools. And that was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. As you know, a lot has happened since. Schools will open with a hybrid format, and they'll meet again October 1st, I think, is the plan, is to evaluate for the first month and then meet on October 1st. All the regional superintendents and boards will then decide whether they'll go to a full classroom or continue as is. And with this COVID, it just depends on what happens, right? It depends on the numbers. It depends on if we get a spike. Lately, I was in meetings this week about EEE. That won't affect our schools so much, but it will affect fall ball. It will affect our kids in our neighborhoods and on our ball fields, just like it did last fall. EEE is in the area again. They just caught a bug and a mosquito in a trap in Stonington. I hope you caught that. It's coming, and we're going to relive that all over again as well. So that's what we got going on. There's a tri-town agreement. You'll hear more about that. The sewer agreement we have with New London and Waterford, that's tri-town. That is up for a 30-year renewal, and we've been working hard. COVID got in the way, but we met with those fellows for about 2.5 hours today. There's a lot to update in our agreement, and to be fair to all towns. And obviously, we're moving along with the beaches. The boardwalk is now 2 ways. We ask people to wear masks if you could, but not many people are, and that's where we're at. Downtown is limping along. Restaurants are open. There is going to be an event the Main Street merchants are putting together on September 12th, a vintage antique. They did it last year in conjunction with the Oyster Fest. We won't have the Oyster Fest this year, but it'll be a chance for people to come down, and it'll be a little bit of a flea market feel. There'll be some classic cars down there, and we're going to spread people out on Main Street all the way down to Niantic Center School and all the way up. So any questions?
Any questions for the first selectman? Yes, Anne.
So this is, I'm not sure if he can answer or who can. Is there, if you're going to have a town meeting, is there a limit to the number of people that can be on a, like a Zoom call if you do it virtually?
No, Zoom is unlimited. I think the package we have, it's like 1,000 or more.
Oh, okay.
We might do it in person. We'll spread people out in the auditorium. We could do it outside at the football fields, and ask people to spread out and bring chairs, and we'll do it that way. Generally town meetings don't carry a lot of people. This one might. Again, this plan we have is to add money into the police station without it costing taxpayers any more funding. And obviously that's your job, is to determine whether a project is affordable or not to the town, and look at the debt. And this wouldn't add any debt to this project, and we'd be able to finish it with properly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll work on that town meeting part. That's all the other parts.
I have a question, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, I know Jeff isn't here and Mariana isn't here, and I've been reading in the last week and a half to 2 weeks about additional sources of funding for school districts throughout the state, in addition to some of the earlier monies given. So do you have any information on that? And that's also something I think that the board needs to be informed of and kept informed on, because it's a constant changing calculus almost.
Yeah, and Jeff is supremely aware of that you're going to be interested in that information. And I think being in August, I think he's prepared for maybe your September regular meeting to probably come in and dominate your meeting with the added cost of education and where some of that funding might come from, or with some of the juggling he's going to have to do to deliver that. And maybe by your mid-September meeting, he might have an indication where October 1st is going to go too. Because, if you're back to normal October 1st, things might change as far as the budget. As far as funding goes, there's a lot out there, and there's a lot of promises being made. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Jeff would be better off speaking to that.
Yes, thanks. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Because
Good question.
there were some recent developments which are very promising, but it'd be nice to know how that's working out. Thanks.
Okay, I'll just address Mark's comment about, why we still have on our agenda this evening the special appropriation. I had asked Anna to keep it on the agenda because I didn't want to just drop it. I did want to make a few comments about it when we get to that item in the agenda. So with that, if there's no further questions for the first selectman, we will hear from the finance director.
Good evening. So
Anna?
I guess let's talk first about the current fiscal year. So you did receive the reports in your packets for the month of July. I did send you a revised month summary, as I found when I was giving it another review. I had transposed a couple of...
Let me call you back after this Board of Finance meeting, okay? Okay, bye.
Okay, Anna, you can continue. I've muted the newcomers.
Okay. Okay, so I had gone. So of course, our biggest collection is for taxes. July is our tax month. And one thing that I did with regards to our revenues, because even though we ended our 6/30/20 on a good note, we still have concerns going into the new fiscal year on how our year will go. And so when I did a side-by-side comparison of fiscal year ending 6/30/20 and the current fiscal year for the month of July, all in all, I think we tracked very well. A couple of differences were with our building permits. We actually, in July of last year, we had about $15,000 in building permits, and this July we had just under 42,000. So that was about a 6.3% increase year over year. Our conveyance taxes were, went the other way. We had 69,000 in July of last year, and this July we had 37,985, so about a $31,000 decrease. So, but the interesting thing is the increase in the building permits somewhat made up for the decrease in the conveyance taxes. But so far, for our first month, our revenue collections, I would have to say, are on track with the way they were last fiscal years, perhaps just a little bit higher. I'll also point out, in the month of July, we do make, a large debt service payment. We make principal and interest payments, and that was just under $3.9 million this year. And we did pay out the library subsidy in July, the $293,884, along with some other expenses. And then I'll just note the two fire departments, their overtime is tracking a little bit high, higher than like 1/12 of the budget. I haven't had a chance to talk to the fire chiefs at this point. That's about all I have to highlight for the month. I don't know if anyone has any questions before I talk a little bit about the fiscal year that ended June 30th.
Does anybody have any questions for the finance director with regard to the current fiscal year that we're in, period ending July 31st, 2020? If not, I have one comment and one question, Anna. So when you were talking about the revenue items to date,
Yes.
I noticed that last year, as of July 31st, that the taxes for the current grand list, I believe we collected 38.33%. So if I can compare that to this period this year at 46.88%, I'm thinking that that's a good trend. And do you have a comment about that, or what's happening, or?
Well, we collected 45.24%. I think you might be using the revenues year to date instead of the tax.
No, I looked at the revenue account status report of 7/31/2019, and I saw that taxes current grand list were 38.33% month to date, the same month to date as last year.
Yeah, because the report, the budget summary shows it at 45.24%. I do believe that last year for July, I may have given a draft report before the final report.
That could be. I could have been looking at a draft version and not a final version. Very well could be. Okay. But you're saying that still, this time last year, the most recent report that you're looking at indicates a 45%. So we're still tracking very well in terms of collection this year. Okay.
And then I'll also point out too, so that, you actually have like that extra first day in August. So sometimes we have a little bit of shift between the total that comes in, like it might be a little lower one year in July, but it's made up in August, and then vice versa. So it just kind of, that's another factor as well.
So we'll get a really good picture of how we're trending for the first half of this, the first payment of the new fiscal year next month. We'll get a better idea if we're tracking.
Yes.
Similar. Okay. And I just had a question on the detailed expenditure year analysis. I'm looking at Department 106, which is the new human resources department that we created this year.
Yes.
And I know that there was a request to increase the hours for the new HR director from 30 hours to 37.5 hours. and the Board of Finance was not in favor of that. We wanted to put that on hold, maybe perhaps for the next fiscal year. And I see that that is tracking a little bit over budget for the HR manager salary line item. So I'm thinking that 1 month's salary should be about $4,075, and we have recorded $4,726.
Can you say that again, please?
Right. So if you're looking, well, first I just need clarification. Is this an HR manager or HR director? What did you guys name her?
It's a HR manager.
She's okay, and she reports directly to the first selectman?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So the HR manager expense line item indicates a budget of $48,903. 1/12 of that amount would be $4,075. But we've recorded in just this 1 month $4,726. So I'm asking for an accounting of the overage there.
So if you look throughout the budget, all of our salary accounts are tracking at 10% expended at the end of July, as is that one.
Were there 3 pay periods in July? If you're biweekly, are there 3 pay periods in July?
No, we're paid weekly.
So I guess, was there an extra paycheck in July? Would that account for the overage?
July ended on the 31st.
So if you're paid every week, there's 52 checks a year being generated for all employees. Was there an extra check this month generated for all the employees for July?
Let me look at my calendar.
It's 5 weeks in July.
Okay, so we would have received 5 checks, yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, John. Just make a little note. That was all the questions I had in the finances this month. Does anybody else have any questions for the finance director? Any other questions for Anna Johnson this evening? Okay, hearing none, we can move on to new business.
Oh, so Camille, I was just going to talk about last year's operations a little bit, if I could.
Sorry, I didn't mean to rush you.
That's okay. So I did send to you today an updated estimated 6/30/20 unassigned fund balance analysis. So the revenues are at $75.1 million. I did include an additional payment for Salem. We are due 10 installments from them, and we had only received 9. I did not hear back from the Board of Education to confirm receipt of that, but I'm sure they'll make sure that we get it so that we can get it in the bank before the end of this month. The expenses are at $72.9 million. And so I did a little bit of an accounting on the bottom of the worksheet because we have expenditures, and I have not received the list of Board of Education encumbrances and accounts payables that they have at year end. So that will, increase our expenditures. And and then we also, there was a negative amount in one of the Board of Education salary line items, but we get reimbursed for that, so I netted that out. And the town has $253,000 in encumbrances, and then of course we've already approved 2 carryovers, one being the retirement liability and the police K-9 carryover, and then on this evening's agenda is the Aed carryover. So that's how I come up with the $72.9 million in expenditures. We add back in the fund balance that we applied to last year's budget, subtract out the fund balance that we applied to this year's budget. So we're looking at a $1.4 million increase to the unassigned fund balance, therefore bringing it up to $7,675,000. So this will be the second consecutive fiscal year that we have been able to grow our unassigned fund balance by $1.4 million, because last year it grew by $1,484,000. So, and of course, these are just our estimates at this point in time, unaudited, but you know, I am extracting this information from the reports from our system.
Okay.
And then there was just one other thing that I thought I would, oh, you also had I gave you all an updated CNR refund report so that you have that information. And then I'll just mention that last week we had a pricing for bonds and notes for the town. We had, bear with me one second. We sold $17,365,000 in bonds, of which $2,585,000 was refunding prior year bonds. And we also did for $11,420,000 in notes. The true interest cost on the bonds was 1.84%, and the true excuse me, the true interest cost on the notes was 0.40%. So I just thought that the board would be interested in knowing that.
So you went out to bond $17 million worth of new bonding. And when you say refunding prior year bonds, I guess in layman's terms, that means doing a refinance at a better rate?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So you went from 2.5% to 1.84% through the refunding? Or did I get that wrong?
No, so the rate on the new bonds is 1.84%.
Right. And so the bonds that were refunded, what do you recall what the rate was prior to refunding?
No, I don't have that information.
Probably north of 2.5% though, right?
It would have had to be, yes, to make it sense for us to do
Worthwhile.
at this point, yes.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
So so we have actually, you know, we've done several refundings since I believe 2009. So this is yeah, so since 2009 we've done $57.8 million in refunding, saving a little over $3.1 million. So, you know, for the rest of the term of what we do refundings on. So whenever we get the opportunity, you know, in the marketplace, we do try to take advantage of that. So the savings, I believe, is about $227,000. And when we restructured the refunding, we designated to take that savings in the fiscal year 6/30/24, because that's when we have, that's one of the peak years in our debt service. So this way, that will help us out in the future.
Very good. Anything else?
That's all I have this evening.
Any questions for the finance director for fiscal year ended 2020? Any questions?
I do. I have one, Anna. When I came in to pick up my packet, you had mentioned your meeting and presentation with the bond rating agency.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and I thought it was good news. So I was wondering if you'd like to share that with the board.
Yeah, okay, so, you know, each year when we go to market, we do a rating call with Standard & Poor's, and they did affirm our rating, and a couple of positive comments that they made. So as you know, to balance this year's budget and, you know, mitigate the tax increase to the taxpayer, the board applied $900,000 of unassigned fund balance. And, but on the other hand, you also still increased the mill rate, and you also took a more conservative approach on the percent of the grand list that we would collect, going from 98.4 to 98%. So when the rating agency, commented on that, they gave us, that they gave those were a couple of positive things that the town did, along with the use of the unassigned fund balance. So, I just thought, that was, some good news for what we did.
So that's interesting, because that's contrary to what we typically believe happens. We were always under the assumption that if we dipped into that rainy day fund balance, or the undesignated fund balance, that would harm us in our credit rating. So why did they put a positive spin on that?
Well, the positive spin well, first of all, the reason that we applied such a large amount of our unassigned fund balance, there were, very notable factors. We were, in a pandemic, and there was concern about, okay, how are we going to end our fiscal year? And then also, how are we going to do going into the new fiscal year, and having an overall, concern, because there are people that lost their jobs and so on and so forth. So there's an understanding, to use your unassigned fund balance at this point in time. However, even though in using the fund balance, having a small increase in the mill rate, and also decreasing that percent, that we were going to collect a lower percentage of our grand list, those were like positive attributes to like doing something negative, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I for one felt very positive about the outcome of this budget season. So it's very reassuring to hear from credit agencies that they also agreed with our approach this year. So thank you for sharing that positive feedback. Was that it, Ann Santoro?
Yes. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, we'll move on to new business. Any further questions? Seeing no hands and hearing no one, we'll move on to new business. Item A, special appropriation bond resolution for the public safety building, increase by $2.2 million to $7.2 million. As Mr. Nickerson had pointed out earlier in our meeting, there has been a fortuitous receipt, not receipt yet, but a fortuitous timing of receipts that are due from FEMA, which could potentially help us in alternate funding sources for the PSB project. So at this point, that will be tabled until our next Board of Finance meeting. At that next meeting, if it is a special meeting, it will be the only agenda item that will be discussed. And we are expecting, there are two things. One, we would expect the Board of Selectmen to come up with a new proposal, if you will. And two, we are expecting a presentation from the Public Safety Building Vision Committee Chair that will provide full disclosure of the total project costs, as well as the timing of those costs. The Board of Selectmen will make a recommendation to the Board of Finance with regard to how they think the project should best be funded. Board of Finance members should understand that our charter gives the authority and the responsibility to the Board of Finance to ultimately decide what the source of funding will be for capital projects. So if there's any questions there whatsoever about what is being asked of us, I would urge each one of you to revisit the town charter and read the section that pertains to our particular board. So with that, again, I'll repeat that a new proposal as well as a new presentation will be coming forward to the Board of Finance. If it is done within the next couple of weeks, we are happy to entertain a special meeting date, provided that everybody that will have a quorum. I'm not sure of people's vacation plans. If there are any, we may just have to wait until the September meeting, but we'll rely on the first selectman to tell us when he's ready to move forward with it, and we will do our absolute best to accommodate an expedited schedule on that.
Yeah, we expect to be done next Wednesday. So it'll be forwarded to you on Wednesday night.
Okay, very, very good. That's helpful to know in advance. So I will poll the members and ask for any vacation schedules in the next couple of weeks to see, you know, what we might be able to come up with. Okay, so that does not require a motion this evening. We are tabling agenda item A until our next Board of Finance meeting. So with that, we'll move on to agenda item B, special appropriation, fire department radios, CNRE, $211,176. So let's see who will be walking us through this appropriation request tonight.
Anna, you prepared for this?
I can
I
speak.
don't know if the chiefs, are the chiefs here? I see the, that dispatch is probably Jeff.
Right, but I
That's
didn't
why.
know, I didn't know if one of the phone numbers was Chief.
I don't know either. Yeah, they often call in.
Okay, a phone number 739-3830. Can you identify yourself, please? Okay, so that is probably not fire chief.
Okay. Okay, I can speak to the radio. So
We do
I
have
know-
EL dispatch, Anna. I mean,
That's just
that
this.
wouldn't be one of the.
I wasn't sure if they'd be calling in from that number. Okay.
Yeah, so as you know, we did include radios for the 2 fire departments in the capital improvement plan this fiscal year, source of funding being CNRE funds. We did go out to bid. We received 2 bids, and they were both very close to each other. We did go with the low bidder, Utility Communications. Both of the bids actually came in at more funding than we actually had planned for in the budget. So what the fire chiefs did is they looked at the price per unit and came up with the number of units that they could afford to purchase for what had been identified in the capital improvement plan.
Do any Board of Finance members have questions regarding this request, this special appropriation request? Any questions at all? Okay, seeing no hands and hearing no voices, I'll entertain a motion for this appropriation request. Yes, John?
Okay, move to approve a special appropriation and transfer in the amount of $200,011.176 in CNRE Fund 32 as follows, from account 32-70-300-500-999, parentheses townwide projects, to an account to be established titles NFD-FFD multiband radios. This project is consistent with the 2020/2021 capital improvement plan. This resolution is passed under the guidance of Executive Order 7S, in no town meeting, and being less than 1% of the current budget.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Ann Santoro. I think we can do this by video. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed, abstain, motion carries 600. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the carryover emergency management 1000 AED supplies. Who will address the board this evening regarding that request?
I can do that.
Okay.
So we started, well, actually, the first AED units that we received for our town buildings were actually purchased for us by the East Lyme Ambulance Association. And so different parts within the machine expire, and then actually at some point the machine itself expires. So knowing that, we started putting about $1,000 in the emergency management budget for AED supplies. So the first thing they wanted to purchase was a new machine for the field services facility, and they cost $1,445. So we don't really have enough within 1 year's budget. And so actually when emergency management put together their budget for this fiscal year, they had noted in the backup that they had wanted to carry the funds over. So that's what this request before you this evening is.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Any questions for the finance director?
I have a question, Anna, less of a finance question, but just a logistical question. So if the unit at Field Services Building is now past due for replacement, do we do something to make sure there's an operative unit there, or is it have still a life beyond its past date? Do you know that?
You know what, I do believe that they do have some flexibility with the operations.
Okay.
That is that's a good question. I will be sure to inquire about that.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
Any further questions? Seeing no hands and hearing no one, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll do that.
Yes, Rich Steele.
Move to approve the carryover of the remaining balance of $1,000 in account 01-252-200-300-244 in parentheses AED supplies from the 2019/20 budget to account 01-25-214-300-244 in parentheses AED supplies in the 2020/21 budget.
Thank you, Rich. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John Birmingham. By show of hands, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, motion carries 600. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the appointment of the auditor for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 20. Anna, would this be 6/30/21?
No, they will. So we have to have our 6/30/20 books audited, and so this is where this starts with.
I always get a little bit confused because it's a year behind, but you're right. You're right. We haven't even gone through, 19 yet. Okay, 2020. Okay, Anna, can you walk us through the process that you undertook to go out to bid on this particular vendor?
Sure. So, because municipal auditing is a specialty service, I contacted the State Department of, the State Office of Policy and Management, and to obtain the list of the firms that did audits for 6/30/19. So on the list, there were a total of 16 firms. I did send RFPs out to 3 firms that conducted audits during the 6/30/19 year for, municipality of our size. Unfortunately, we only did receive one response from Blum Shapiro. I will say that the last time that we went out to bid for audit services, we received 2 proposals, one from RSM and the other from Blum Shapiro. A lot of the firms that conduct audits, because of the size of their staff, once they get a certain number of clients, they're not interested in increasing their client base. When I went through the list of the 16 firms, eight of the firms had less than 5 clients. One firm had 6 to 10 clients. In the category of 11 to 15 clients, there were 2 firms. 3 firms had 15 to 20 clients, and then 2 firms had over 20 clients. So and when we had a conference call last week to discuss the proposal results, and we had discussed that at that point in time. That's and then the other thing is, if RSM would have been doing our audit this year, their fee was $62,000. Blum Shapiro bid it at $65,000, which is about a 4.8% increase. We expected that because during the budget process, that line item was increased by $10,000. However, there is a shift in the way that the pricing was allocated. And, we discussed that last week at our meeting. I did as a result of our call, I did reach out to Mr. Nozick, who would be, the partner involved in this, in this engagement. And he did indicate that they would work with us relative to reallocating how they had the cost structure set up. So, that we would be in a position to do that. If you did look at if the way that they did the bid, there's like 2 pieces. The top part includes the annual audit report, the federal and state single audits, the EFS agreed upon procedures. With the that's like the education finance system. That's a special report that involves the Board of Education only. The Board of Education pays that fee in its entirety. So if you netted that out, that would be the cost of the the regular audit would be at $57,000, and the Board of Education does pay a share of that, a minimum amount of $12,000. So we would still be within the budget. However, if we look at reallocating the total cost, then it would kind of like shift things around a bit, and we would come in under what we have budgeted in the Board of Finance budget.
Have all the Board of Finance members had a chance to review this document that was forwarded to them? And if so, are there any questions for the Finance Director or myself or Rich Steele, who also comprise, we're all members of the audit subcommittee? Any questions?
Yes. I have one. Just obviously, Blum Shapiro is an established firm, but I was just wondering, do they provide reference material, or do you make that endeavor to check out a reference or two and see if the municipalities that they're servicing are happy?
Well, so actually, they did provide references, and I hadn't called any, but I was thinking that if I did call some, I might go to the list that the state provided me and call a couple that were listed on, on that list, like to be my choice of who to speak with. Mm-hmm. They are a reputable,
right? Yeah.
A reputable firm. And as a matter of fact, they have more clients than any of the other firms, because they do have more staff, and they do have more staff accessible to them.
Okay.
So in Santoro, I will tell you that some of you may know that I'm a trustee on the Katharine Hepburn Cultural Arts Center, and I am part of their as a trustee. I'm also involved with their finance subcommittee, who hires auditors and reviews the work, and we use Blum Shapiro, and I will say that they do outstanding work for our organization. And while I'm on that subject, that is why I did forward Blum Shapiro's name to Anna Johnson to make sure that they were included in this whole process, because I wanted them to be aware that we were going to be awarding the contract to a new auditor. And that is why when we go to vote on accepting this auditor, I will recuse myself this evening. I do wish to avoid the appearance of impropriety at all costs. So that's why I'm disclosing that. It will be up to the 5 of you as to how you want to handle this. If you want to roll forward with the single response that we got from Blum Shapiro, or if there's an alternate road you want to take, that will be up to the 5 of you.
Sure. You know, I could ask Rich or Anna. Well, let's ask Rich. You've been involved in the process, and so how do you feel about the company?
I feel very good about them. They, as Anna mentioned, they service quite a few municipalities. They've got a lot of clients. Their information packet that they sent us seemed very professional. And I guess my reasoning is that the last time we went out for bid for auditors, they were one of the 2 that we had that returned results. And what Anna had been explaining is that it's a very specialized type of auditing firm that does this type of work. And a lot of times they cap the number of clients that they have because of capacity. My understanding is that Blum Shapiro has a fairly large staff, and there'll be 4 people that'll be dedicated to working with our audit, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah.
And I too, since I sat on the subcommittee, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote. Hope that answers your question, Ann.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Just having a sense of, you know, of what the firm is like, and it seems as though they're interested, and they were interested in the past. So that's important. And I guess we have to move on from RSM. So, you know, it's not like we have a ton of choices either. But so.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but when you have one that responded out of the 3, you know,
Right.
you
Sounds
take what you get.
Thanks.
Sure.
Any questions, John, Peter, or Ann Chikello? Any questions at all? Okay. There's no further questions then. So you have elected to recuse yourself, Rich. You know, I don't think it's entirely necessary, but if that's what you wish to do, I'll honor that. And so it will remain up to the 4 remaining members to take a vote on this. So if there's no further questions, comments, or concerns, I will entertain a motion to approve Blum Shapiro as the auditor for the town of East Lyme.
All right, I'll move to approve retaining the services of Blum Shapiro and Company, PC, to conduct the audit of the town's records for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020, and authorize the Board of Finance chairperson to execute the engagement letter.
Thank you, Ann Chikello. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Peter DeRosa. So all those in favor, please raise their hand and say aye.
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 Opposed, abstain. So motion carries 4-0-0. Great, thank you.
Abstain, the record.
Don't you mean 402?
But we're not abstaining, we're recusing ourselves.
Oh, okay, all right, I'm sorry.
So just a slight procedural difference, I guess. 4-0-0. I'm sure Karen Dimitrick will capture that for the record. Okay, with that, we have one final item under new business this evening. It's to ratify transfers intra, right, Anna? Not inter.
Pardon?
These are intra department transfers, not inter, correct?
They're within the department, yes.
Right. So the amount is $83,869.47. Just a side note, I did speak with Anna. The books are not officially closed yet, and they won't be either with this transfer. We may have a little bit more cleanup at our September meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, but we are getting to the end.
Okay, very good. All right, so were there any questions with regard to the departmental transfers? Any questions or comments for Anna this evening?
I have one. I just have one, Anna. Well, there are just a couple of items, and the reason for transfer refers to, the COVID-19 situation. So I was wondering if any of those might have been subject to a request for reimbursement from FEMA.
Oh, we absolutely will include them. So anything that's been an accounts payable expenditure, we created a COVID-19 tracking code. So let's just, run a report, see what's in there. So as I prepare to make the submissions to FEMA, I will send all the departments that report and ask them to confirm that everything that they expended relative to COVID-19 is included on that report. If not, they're going to have to provide me the details, for what we will be submitting.
That sounds great. At some point, and I think I had asked for this before, but not directly to you, but just talking about it generally to the board, but it would be great if, as we go on in COVID land, that we have even a report or a little memo or something that, if we, maybe short of formal auditing information at this point, or accounting rather, of these various fund sources, whether it's FEMA or something else that's COVID related, and that we benefit from. So I don't know how, maybe the board would discuss that at some meeting, or we put it on as an agenda item. But it would be good to kind of get a bit of an accounting or a memorandum or something on some periodic basis. It sounds like you've got it all in your system anyway. And I was thinking that at some point the same info from Board of Ed would be helpful, or any other, whether it's sewer, water and sewer, or I don't know, whatever. But it would be good to know and track, because as I mentioned when Mr. Nickerson was giving his report, one's head can spin looking at the different sources of revenue that are available, possibly available, et cetera, to help out with the COVID situation. So it would be good to know as we go forward into our next budget cycle. Thanks.
Is that something that would be fairly easy for you to put together, Anna?
You know what? Once I complete the application to FEMA, I'm going to have a summary sheet, so I could provide the board with a copy of that.
Yeah, that's.
So we're not really sure what the timing is. Ann Santora, I know you've brought this up at a couple of our meetings. So in order not to lose sight of it, why don't we ask Rich Steele to put that particular item on the open items list, so that he's our tracker, so to speak, of open items.
Yeah, so sounds good.
Okay, got it.
All right, thanks,
It's
Rich.
a good point, Ann. It's nice to keep track of that, so that 8 or 9 years down the line, when we get a windfall, that we'll know where it came from.
Just another thing too, I was thinking that if the town needs to advocate on its own behalf, or there are people who want to advocate, for the town to receive additional monies, it's good to know what we have in hand, what we're promised, what could be down the pike. So, I think, there's definitely folks interested in helping out in that way. So, thanks.
It also could be useful in comparison with neighboring towns as to, are we tracking at about the same amount of expenses? Are we incurring more or less? Are we being more efficient than other towns? Or are there areas that we need to ramp up?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, very good. So any other old business that anyone would like to discuss this evening?
Did we ratify the
Need a
transfer?
motion.
The motion, I think.
Oh, we didn't do that? Okay, sorry. Checking the clock here, rushing along. All right, can we have a motion, please, to ratify the transfers?
I'll move to ratify departmental transfers in the amount of $83,869.47, processed for fiscal year and June 30th, 2020.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Rich Steele. All those in favor by show of hands, please say aye.
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 Motion carries 600. Thank you. Yeah, I got a little confused, Dan Santoro, because I know that was old business and I jumped ahead, closing out the transfers. So my apologies. Any other items that we'll discuss under old business? So hearing none, we'll move on to the public discussion portion of the meeting. And I don't think I have full control this evening of this meeting. So perhaps I can ask the first selectman to, Mark, can you see everybody that is the,
You're still the
Pardon?
host. I checked that you're still the host. I don't see any waiting room people. When you were looking at people in the waiting room, I could not see them. So I don't know how you saw it and I couldn't, other than I'm just not, I don't know. But you can unmute everybody by the mute button down below, I thought.
well,
And host. Or
I
you
can-
can go into each individual box and unmute everybody. But I mean, I don't know who wants to speak. I guess you have to unmute everyone and find out if anyone wants to speak.
so I have tried my unmute all button. It doesn't appear to be working. Oh, maybe now it is. Maybe it was just a slight delay. Okay. So for example, there are some people in the waiting room, Madeline Miller, Michael Goss. Would anybody in the waiting room like to address the Board of Finance this evening? Would anybody like to address us with comments?
They're still muted from what I can see, Camille. No, they're not. Oh, no, they still are. They're still, everyone's muted.
It's my button isn't working, so
Um,
I'm just muting myself because I have the kids in the background.
okay.
well, there's that too. That's right. Everyone's muted themselves. Correct.
Yeah, so you have
Okay.
some that are not muted, some that are, so I think it's their muting, not yours, Camille.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so I'll ask one more time. Is there anybody in the waiting room that would like to address the Board of Finance this evening? If so, please speak up. Okay. Hearing no one, I think that we will move on to board comments this evening. Would anybody from the board like to address each other or the people in the audience this evening with any comments? Any board comments this evening? Okay. Seeing no hands and hearing no one, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thanks, Ann Chikello. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, thanks, Ann Santoro. All those in favor by show of hands, please say aye.
Aye.
Terrific. Motion carries 600. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Bill?